What was that last thing?
Wow.
How did that happen?
I really stepped on that with my silly sounds. I was glad I stopped and heard that cuckoo. Nice.
I'm sorry. I totally didn't have time to find a musical instrument tonight.
You found a cuckoo clock.
Right. Don't apologize for bringing a cuckoo clock to a jam.
Who knew that
I'm sorry I didn't have a cuckoo clock.
Do that again.
Okay. Hi.
Welcome.
Hey.
Well, it's a shame there's nothing to talk about tonight, you know?
Nothing going on in the world.
I don't know. Is there anything going on?
Welcome to Outside the Inn, everybody. We are the Travis Larson Band. This is number 32.
Wow.
Everyone.
Lucky 32.
32 of Outside the Inn. I remember just yesterday when it was 23, now it's 32.
Joe's texting.
Yeah, I just got a Joe Travers text.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, Joe. I don't know that he's watching, but he's texting in any case.
He's not watching.
I should say, I should let him know.
Yeah.
Hi,
All right.
We're on the air right now. Yay.
Hey, everybody. Glenn and James and Tommy and
maybe Joe Travers
Anthony.
will show up now that he just told him we were on the air. Yes, Glenn Hensman, James Tejada.
Yeah.
So there's, we'll talk about like some other stuff before we get into this, but as we were discussing over the weeks when we don't have a guest, we've been progressing through the albums. And so far we've done 2 episodes on the first album because we had Kip on here filling in for you a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And then, and last week, we didn't have a guest last week, but that was a Halloween distraction.
The Halloween special.
Big special Halloween. Yeah. By the way,
I don't know where to put my headgear. I don't have a Halloween box per se. So it's still just sitting in the bathroom is what I'm getting at. The thing over the
cleaver,
the knife in the head thing.
Yep.
The Halloween box. The Halloween box is in the attic of the treehouse. So you just need to bring it back.
I
to
know,
the studio.
but it's kind of cracking me up just seeing it on the bathroom counter too. I put it on, walk around for a while.
If you ever, have like somebody that's unwelcome in your yard, or like a home intruder or somebody like that, if you came walking out with that and just screamed your head off,
that would be amazing. Or even just the UPS guy. Well, that wouldn't be very nice.
No,
but
no, they'd probably think this is probably not a house that I want to try and break into.
Right. That's a good idea.
There's already something going on here.
Right. I'm late.
Right.
Guys, I'm late.
So tonight, so we did the first album, we did Suspension, we did the first album again with Kip, and then so we figured tonight we'll eventually get into Burn Season, which is, to me, our biggest turning point of actually kind of becoming a real band. Just my opinion, but we can get into that as we go. I know there's a couple of things that Jen wanted to cover before we got into the album. Like, didn't you say you had a show and tell?
Well, yeah, I do. But first of all, I did want to say, I know we never talk about politics as a band, and I'm not going to. I just wanted to say it was really cool to see any people today experience a moment of joy. And that's all. It was really nice to see.
Right.
And made me feel good. Parties aside, sides aside, all of that stuff. To see people laughing, I was like, oh my God, people still know how to smile. Good. Okay.
Even
that's all I want to say about it.
I won't say anything definitive either, but even before there was a resolution of any sort, and I thought it was funny that people sort of seemed to go toward funny memes about slow counting and stuff instead of being. It was like, all right, we can all agree that's a funny meme or whatever.
Right.
Like even no matter which direction you were going, I thought that was kind of somehow heartening.
Jen, there's a teeny bit of Dale echo on your side. I don't know if it's adjustable.
Me?
Dale is echoing through your stuff.
Oh, dang it,
a little
Dale.
bit.
Sorry.
I don't know how to fix that.
Really got in her head, didn't I?
Well, she doesn't. You and I are always using the in-ears. Mine are more visible in-ears.
Those are outside.
These are out ears. I have the largest in-ears.
Yeah, that's not the right preposition. In, on and around, maybe.
Okay, well, so yeah. This past month. Oh, sorry. I was gonna move away from that.
Go for it.
Is that okay? I just want to address the big white elephant. Anyway, So yes, the show and tell. This past month, I haven't been able to really talk about it because it was a surprise.
Is it a white elephant or a pink elephant?
No, pink elephant's like a weird gift.
Yeah,
right?
It's just an elephant in the room. I don't think it's color specific when you're talking about an awkward thing sitting there.
Again, there's nothing like a white elephant. I'm thinking of a unicorn or something. I'm sorry.
When I think of a white elephant, I think of those cookies that Joe Travers and I really like.
That I gotta go grab. Yes,
I gotta get some of those.
Yeah, you're right. It's white or pink is a oddball gift. So
yes.
Oh no.
I think it could be a 500-pound gorilla. Sometimes that's the awkward thing in the room, but also just elephant in the room. Anyway, go ahead.
Elephant, gorilla. There was something in the room. Whatever. So this last month of October, my dear dad, who's going to be 80 in just a few 2 weeks here, went to stay in Phoenix with his girlfriend. So my brother and I took that opportunity to redo his house. We laid all new laminate flooring, painted, did a ton of work. And we also went through just a bunch of crap, as people collect when they've become 80 years old, and he might be listening, and that's okay. He understands. But one of the really cool things I found, and we had a huge trailer that we were just piling old stuff in, but I kept this one, was the StereoMate AM/FM headset radio.
Oh my gosh.
You can't even believe this thing. I should have pulled it out of the box, but check this bad boy out.
You gotta hold it still for a second because it's so film-like. And you should show the box up close and still for a minute too, just because the advertiser, especially the girl who's so excited to have 2 transistor radios taped to a Walkman headset.
I know.
On her head.
Check it out. Isn't this the coolest thing ever?
Well, that says Gary Coleman all over it. Right? Well, the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. You remember that?
Yeah. I'm seriously going to find myself some D-cell batteries. That's probably what's in here. No, I'm kidding. And check these suckers out. But I was quite delighted with this find, the Sony AM/FM headset radio.
Yeah, I'll bet
God only knows when.
I bet the frequency response on those drivers, just amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of in-ears, like we were saying,
right?
Yeah. You should just leave those on for the rest of the night.
There you go.
I would say it probably sounds like a telephone, but telephones sound pretty good nowadays.
Tommy says he loved you on Star Trek.
Nice.
Right.
It's interesting when you can look at something that obsolete and still access it. Nice. And still access the feeling of how badass that would have been to have it back then.
I know. That's why when I found them, I was like, whoa, look at these things.
How awesome would that have been?
So that's my big show and tell. And the MIA, some of the MIA that was going on last month for me was, this big project. And
that's a good show and tell.
Of course, if your dad is seeing this, he's seeing that you have those. And he's like, well, you took my headphones. You got to bring those back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few little things like that.
I was actually
Stephanie says probably get a free bowl of soup with those.
Nice. I was cleaning out a closet today and came across a couple Walkmans, and I won't throw anybody under the bus. Like a Sony Walkman, and then also an off-brand, just like just, I don't know what brand it was, but it was just a crappy version of the cassette Walkman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a funny story, and I will be kind to the person. I'm not going to mention the person, but somebody asked me if I would record with them. I said, yeah, send me some demos. Mailed me a cassette tape. And then I said, can you give me a CD? And then he proceeded to make fun of me for not having a way to play.
How recently was this?
It was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Proceeded to make fun of me
for not
having a way to play it. So I cruised I said, I'll tell you what, man, if I find a way to listen to these, I'm open to recording with you. But so I would just cruise the Goodwill, and I came across one of these things that I still have. Uh-huh. And the reason is because somebody asked me to record, and that was the only way for me to listen to their demo.
Wow.
So you're telling me, Dale, that you don't have one of these just sitting around?
I do now, but it's not a Sony. Oh, I actually have a cool Sony, but it's the yellow sports one with the super secure side latch.
That was literally within arm's reach of you, Travis.
Yeah. What is your excuse?
I'm in the studio, and we have a big rack full of drawers with just crap that's been stored in there, but you don't want to necessarily throw it out.
It's 2020. I say, what is your excuse for having a cassette Walkman? You go, well, I'm in the studio.
Right.
You should have asked Travis if he had a Walkman you could borrow.
Right. Because I have boxes and boxes of cassettes from when Jen and I used to actually demo stuff on cassettes with the Fostex 4-track that we were talking about recently.
I guess my main point is that's attic stuff, not studio stuff.
That's true.
Anyway, who am I to talk?
Well, it doesn't take up much room. I mean, that's the only cassette device I have left.
I would say it takes up a ton of room.
It's no bigger. Yeah, it practically is about the same size as that new phone. It's like,
gonna be a while.
Like the new phones are getting bigger. Like how the new iPhones are. Before you know it, it's going to be more and more like hello.
True.
Hello.
Not from the side so much.
Hello.
Not so much from the side. Right. Yeah, right.
Okay, so I guess real quick too that I sort of at the end of last week's show, I just blurted out there because I was kind of talking to Dale.
Goober just said, by the way, I thought you wheeled your motorcycle in when we did the show and tell.
Oh, I went. So yes, I only have a picture because I didn't want to wheel the motorcycle in here. I did pick up this 1996 Honda Rebel 250 from our dear friend Kip Stork. It was his bike. I don't know if I can get it.
Yeah. Just hold it steady. Let it. Yeah.
There it is. Wait.
For you. There you go. Right there.
Okay.
So excited for you.
Let's see. Hang on.
Dun, 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 dun.
Anyways, there she is.
Sorry.
Were you saying something?
Yeah, right. Anyways, so yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it than that right now.
That is awesome.
It exists. It's in the garage, and I have to figure out how to ride it. So
that'll be the fun adventure that Dale and I are worried about.
Oh, dude, I've disengaged all those neurons of worrying when you guys started doing chainsaw stuff. Whatever. You have fun on your motorcycle. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Chainsaw, a whole different thing.
Not to the observer.
I think what the funny part of it is that this Kip owned this, and Kip is a very large individual, as everybody knows.
That is funny.
This bike,
everybody knows.
If it's me, and to see Kip riding this thing, it was just the most hilarious and fun thing ever. And since then, he's upgraded to something more fitting for him. So, I was the first. He gave me first, rights to offer on it, and I'm excited that he gets to keep it in the family. So I told him anytime you want to take it out and putt around, he's welcome to. So it'll be cool.
Kip riding that motorcycle was a little bit like, I may not be able to pull this off in a timely manner.
Now you get to shop for fun stuff like helmets and body armor jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know. That'll be cool. I do have to get. Yeah, I haven't started writing it yet, so I have to get all the proper accoutrement to get going. So
Yeah. That way you can be safe and acquire fun gear. I don't think you're going to properly appreciate all the gear aspects of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
Well, maybe you will. I don't know.
The leather
Right,
caps.
Never mind. I when I was going through pictures for last week's Halloween episode, when actual photo albums, I took a few snapshots of just some old pictures, and there was the one of me at our friend in the Bay Area's house where I was riding his son's kitty Jeep. You know, it's like one of those little Jeeps that you drive, like you're driving a car, but you're like 10 times too big to drive it. And I said, this is a little bit like Kip on that motorcycle. I was going to try and find that picture, but I deleted it.
Yeah.
Tommy
driving.
Sorry.
Good.
Tommy says chainsaws, motorcycles, juggling kittens. Where does it end, Jay?
Juggling kittens. I haven't done that.
What was that movie where Steve Martin did the cat juggling thing?
Oh, yeah.
What was that? Anyway,
did he do a cat juggling thing in a movie?
I thought so. Maybe I'm mixing up movies, but it was one of these, like, he was morally outraged and was like, cat juggling. Somebody tell me what movie that was in.
There's Sam. Hey, Sam.
And Vincent. I do not have a motorcycle license yet, Vincent asks. Apparently, according to Kip, who has never had one. And he's been riding his whole life. There's a little bit of a circular thing, like you can't register it till you have a license. You can't get your license till you have insurance. Like you have to go through this really specific kind of circle thing. So the first step is to get the permit, I believe, and then insurance, and then the license. So
Gotcha.
I just filed for the title. Actually, it was still sitting in the mailbox. Somehow they never picked it up. So that's rolling, and yeah, maybe sometime early next year I'll have my license. We'll see.
The flag wasn't up on your mailbox when I went by yesterday, so that's probably why they didn't pick it up.
I think the wind blew it down. Okay, this is entirely uninteresting for people.
James says it was in the jerk. It was in the jerk, the cat juggling, apparently, and I pretty much trust James's encyclopedic recall.
Right. Are you sure, James?
All I need is this lamp.
Yeah.
This ashtray.
Okay, so burn season, the 2004 album. It feels like
2004.
The 1904 album from Travis Larson Band. So just a few things to cover before we get into, photographic evidence and whatnot. First of all, I was going to say my thoughts on Burn Season as an album are that to me was probably the most exciting and breakthrough album, because we went from being, like, I know we've been talking a lot about the first two records and whether, what we think of them, but based on what we didn't know when we made the first two records and how limited we were with money and technology and all that stuff, the Burn Season record was kind of the first record where I feel like we made the record we wanted to, or at least got closer to making the record we wanted to. And then so many exciting things with that, our first guest artists, all this stuff. So let me just, I don't want to if I want to expand on this stuff, I don't want to just talk about everything all at once. So first of all, I was going to talk about when we started writing for Burn Season, Jen and what was that hard disk? Remember the rack mount hard disk recorder that we got, Jen, before that was
like an Emu.
Yeah, so that was something I think you bought on eBay.
Yeah,
right?
That one. That took the zip drive.
That was a sampler inheritor for me, wasn't it?
I thought it was an Emu hard disk recorder also.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you're not talking about the desktop one, but the
And well, I had
the Tascam. I can't recall that one very much. I'm not sure why.
And it wasn't the Roland hard disk recorder that I had, because that was later, right? Okay.
Yeah. So we got our first digital recorder basically, and that was just for demoing, and we used it. So when we were still in a little one-room apartment at the beginning of that album, and Jen was working for Oddworld, the video game company,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working for the video store,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And we had that hard disk recorder, and we started demoing for that. The very first thing that we demoed, and I think I can't remember if it was the only thing that got demoed when we started, was Burn Season, the song,
Hmm.
which at the time was a drum loop that I set up on that little drum machine here. I actually, let me grab it real quick.
The Akai.
Is that what it is? Is it an Akai?
I don't know why we ever question you, Jen. As much as Jen doesn't like gear as much as Trav and I, she's the one who remembers every model number and every item.
It's
That's
actually
not true.
it's actually
an
it's an Alesis, yeah.
You're right. Well, as I said that, I'm like, that's not an Akai. It's an
Oh,
Elise.
the drum machine. I'm sorry. I thought you were
Yes. So the very first song that we demoed for Burn Season was the song Burn Season, and it was based off of a drum loop on this machine right here, which still sits over here but doesn't really get used anymore. And it was totally based off of three things, at least in my mind. We hadn't really done a groove song at that point, and so it was kind of based off of a Jeff Beck thing and a little bit of the Joe Satriani, that song. I can't remember the name of it, but the Satriani song. Yeah. That Satriani song, right?
Yeah.
It was just the idea. It was just the idea of doing something that had a groove, and then Jeff Beck. We had seen Jeff Beck several times around that time live, and he was playing with Jennifer Batten a little bit before that time, and they were doing some stuff that was very groove oriented, and he was playing this kind of really touchy guitar. So it was the idea of doing something like that, and then the kind of almost slide melody is totally inspired by Luke, where there's some stuff he did with Los Lobotomies where he did like these chordal slide things where he would play a chord and go, and it almost sounds like a guitar slide. There's a song called Froth from the Los Lobotomies record. So it's a little bit of that kind of thing, but that's kind of where the entire record started, was with that demo, with that hard disk recorder, with this drum machine.
Tommy says, I actually own Joe Satriani's Boss DR660 drum machine. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Impressive. Next time we're through, we need to see this.
I wasn't going to say this because it wasn't quite relevant enough, but coupled with Tommy's remark, it is. The plastic chassis standalone drum machine that I still have, I sold one like yours, the Alesis SR16, and I got a Boss 660. And it was because it had more editable sounds, but it used all of its memory being able to edit those sounds, that it couldn't retain more than a couple songs. And also the standalone sounds on that Alesis machine they're not editable, but they just sound killer. And that of all these standalone plastic chassis dedicated drum machine, the one you have, Trav, is the one to have in my opinion.
That was a pretty standard piece of gear back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay,
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. And then the obvious Jeff Beck thing of like, let's do like a guitar intro that has kind of a Jeff Beck groove thing. So that whole thing, which very, very obviously influenced by the right.
Let me throw in there too. I recall the bass line was heavily influenced by Tony Levin and the tune "Don't Give Up," I believe, because I was working on that as a solo piece or something like that. And something along those lines. Yeah.
Well, there was a time too, although I think it was probably historically quite a bit before this, where you and I were actually. I don't know that we ever performed that song, but we were kind of messing around with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just
like when we used to play little, like
the bookstore stuff.
Well, before that, when we used to play like the college venues back when we were like playing with, our Bay Area friend before he went off to be, whole different life. But
Mentally stable.
Disney.
when he actually grew up and made money and had a family. But so yeah, Goober says burn season is also known as the Goober Groove,
Yep,
or
that's
Goober's
right.
Groove.
Hey, I just realized my drum machine comment was relevant to this, because when I did demo the song, when we finally recorded it, the loop I recorded was with that Boss machine.
The Boss, right? Okay.
That song has hybrid drums on it. I just realized, like, there's me playing a groove on drum set, and then I just talked about how much you could edit those sounds. So if you take a Roland R8 hand clap, like an 80s hand clap, detune it about 4 octaves, you can get something that sounds like it doesn't sound like a cheesy record scratch, but it kind of has a hip hoppy texture to it. So yeah, there's a bunch of morphed drum sounds on that song that go and it blends in with the acoustic drums.
Right.
I'm not a moron to buy that machine. Officially justified.
Yeah. I remember when you were, we had asked you to do some sort of loopy thing, and you had presented that, and everyone was like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah. I think that's my recollection.
Nicholas says he just downloaded from Bandcamp. Thank you, Nicholas.
Yay.
So that was kind of the first play something that was, totally like a soulful groove touch song, nothing to do with chops or any of that stuff. And then kind of with the Luke influence built into this big incendiary climax at the end. But for the most part, that's really a feel song. And so that's the first song that was started, not the first song that starts the record, but the first song that was started to work on. And then, like I said, this is, in my mind, historically one of the most exciting TLB records, based on the fact that at the time, the most growth and the most change in life and everything. And so while that goes on, I quit my job at the video store. Jen quits her job at the video game company.
I did.
Eventually.
We started to try and tour on it. Yeah.
But we also got a big, nice, for us, big, nice ocean view place where the studio actually had an ocean view, right? So for 11 years. And that's, and then we got, and I think this was also, I can't remember if we bought this to be able to demo stuff more effectively, because the other hard disk recorder was not very easy to control.
It was awful. We couldn't use it.
Yeah. And then we got a tabletop hard disk recorder that actually had a board on it and everything, which I can grab if you talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Yamaha, I know this one, AWG16 for whatever reason. That's the one that sticks though, because I researched that so hardcore. That stuff wasn't cheap back then. Any kind of digital DAW was all brand new stuff. Before that it was ADAT or DATs and then ADATs, I guess, or I don't really know that order, but you still have that thing. So to go directly to digital was a huge investment, and I just wanted to be sure it was going to work well for us. I think it was 16 tracks, and we knew we were going to be doing the drums in Avalon Studios. So although we had considered that we may need to use this for the drum tracking as well, I remember there was just a lot of thought going into it. So
there's so much going on.
So everything on Burn Season, besides the drums, essentially, and unless we did a few other little things at the studio, was tracked on this Yamaha AW16G.
Oh, I got the G in the wrong place.
Which is this unit right here, which is basically a standalone hard disk recorder, which in these days you would still keep something like this to maybe do a live recording, if you needed to be mobile. Jen and I have done a few live things with this, when we were doing, we did some duet videos, we did a duet tour where we recorded, some of that stuff with this, because it was enough tracks and it was easy. But this was our first delve into actual digital recording, where you could continue to overdub and not run out of tracks, and actually be able to punch a little easier than we were punching when we used the tape machines as well. So we didn't have a screen or anything we could look at, which was really tricky with this thing. You literally had to like, there's like a little
like an LCD screen.
Yeah, like a little digital display screen,
Yeah.
like a Timex watch.
Yeah, like a Mercury something. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could absolutely, like, you could actually bring up the waveform of a track, and so if you were punching, you would take the little roller, find the spot, you know, like zip, 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 like, okay, this is the spot we're editing. You could see the waveform, but it was not like when you have Pro Tools and you see it on a huge screen and it's very clear. It was like this little digital thing. And but we were able to do a lot more of the kind of stuff we wanted to do, where if it was, you know, let's add another harmony or let's add another rhythm guitar over here and all that stuff, and really just try and learn how to really produce a record versus a 3-piece band with a couple overdubs, you know. And it wasn't, we weren't so limited to, you know, our situation versus our imaginations as far as production goes. So we tracked the whole thing on that. And then I don't know if I should wait for the track by track stuff.
It's like Dale wants to say something.
Dale, say
something. I will say something. I'll say something global to the album, and it won't. And you can save something for track by track if you want. In my mind, and stop me if I'm getting this wrong, this was when we fundamentally shifted our process, because we normally had a thing where you would send me a demo, I would demo drums back, and then we'd all get ready. We'd track the drums, and you would do the rest of the keeper takes on top of the keeper drum stuff. This situation, we blocked out time in the studio for when we thought we'd be ready to record drums, but Kip did an upgrade to the studio, and it locked us out of the studio.
That's
so then
we did Pro Tools. We got Pro Tools at the studio.
That was our 2-week window to track drums, and we didn't have it anymore. And you guys were like, well, what do we do? Just wait, but you might as well be productive. So then we had this huge philosophical thing that now doesn't seem that out of the norm, but to start tracking keeper tracks before you're sure they're going to work with the drum tracks was completely upside down. So basically this was the album where you said, well, I'm going to keep working. And I was going, yeah, but what if I do my tracks and it feels like crap because you're not playing to the drums? And we just said, well, we try at least. And I think you just said, well, if that happens, we'll redo it, but we might as well try. And that we just went forward blindly for a couple of months, just working your ass off and me going, is this going to work? And then we had a whole philosophy about it, which was just be super accurate to the click. Right. And that way, when I'm playing to the click, it should work. But we just didn't know if you could build the foundation under the house. Bands like Rush were not doing this yet. We were totally trying to pull something off that was stupid. And, but then
nobody records drums last. Nobody.
Right.
But now a lot of people, like everybody does now.
Now they do now. But back then I'd never heard of it. And you could try to research it, but and part of the reason it became so doable is because everybody has so much control of editing, but we didn't have that kind of control. You guys just had to be that freaking accurate. And then, so anyway, it was really interesting. And we never knew till the last second whether it's going to work. I remember the first couple songs tracking going, I think this is working, you guys. I think we're going to get away with this. I mean, obviously you couldn't do like a blues album this way. It would be silly if you're like trying to make something greasy, but with hopefully surgically precise, fusiony stuff, and then go ahead and let the lead tracks be the feel stuff. It turned out right, but we had to just hope it worked.
Well, and one of the things that pushed towards this, the positivity of it, is Dale, you always said, if I'd known you were going to do that, I would have done this.
100%. But we already had that up. Yeah, but that was already available to us in the demo process.
Yeah.
The idea that you were going to start making keeper tracks, and I was going to hope that I was good enough to make them sound good, or that you guys were good enough to make it to the click. I mean, obviously not like I'm doubting you, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. So yeah, with the hard disk recording, I was able to go, well, yeah, if previously on songs, I would hear myself not matching the intensity of a song because I didn't envision the whole picture. Now we have that available to us, but that doesn't mean we had to do it backwards. You know what I mean? Right. There's that part, which was great. And then there was the can the drums be last and have it still work? And it worked. But the great part of that is that now there's no period during album making process when people are going, well, I'm waiting for you now, unless there's somebody waiting for an idea. But
Right. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, so go ahead.
Well, I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Maybe we should just go through, like, maybe if we keep it somewhat concise, we can go through the tunes and then add some of this stuff as we go, because I kind of already talked about Burn Season.
Well, I want to add to Burn Season really quick, the song that I remember the feedback you were getting was in the tiny little studio, you know, the new place with a teeny tiny, like a pig nose amp, right?
Yeah, but when you say studio, just to be clear for people in the world, we're talking about an apartment bedroom with apartments on either side of it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like a studio. It was an apartment bedroom. It was
like you were getting proper feedback.
So we took I can't remember what was that amp. Really, it wasn't a pig nose.
I think it was a Randall. Remember that little baby Randall?
Yeah, but whose was that?
Devon's?
I can't remember, but
is that possible?
Yeah, so we took this little amp and had it set up just like on a stool.
A stool. Yeah.
And I actually, so I was only using it for feedback, just so people understand. So we were running direct signal. We're recording direct with speaker simulators. So you could normally record with headphones on, but because I needed that note to ring and feedback like crazy, I had this amp hooked up to an auxiliary out where it was just sending a guitar signal to the amp, so I could turn the amp up enough to get it to feedback. And just that one note, and I think we tried it maybe 2 times, maybe 3, and it was just that note. It was like the down, 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 like just to get it to hold. And it was like once we were done, we turned it back off before somebody started knocking on the door, you know. But so the feedback in Burn Season, the song you hear, is done on this little teeny amp that's cranked. I've turned the mid-range all the way up, and I turned the amp up just enough to get it to feedback. And so it's so funny when we also at that time had a fairly early endorsement with Electro Voice, and we were doing those NAMM show Electro Voice concerts at the House of Blues in Anaheim, like, you know, like we did several of those parties, and then we did that one year where we were playing. And I remember our A&R guy at the time for that company, Jim Lapino, being really like psyched about this record and telling everybody, you know, in the EV crew, these guys did all this with this piece of gear like this. They did, you know, like everybody thought it's like a wall of Marshalls, you know, when you listen to the record, it sounds like this huge rig that's just like feeding back. And he's like, these guys use like a Digitech RP whatever and a little practice amp to get that sound. And they're like, that's not possible. No, they didn't do that.
Yeah, you have to use the tools that are available to you. I think by then that was the GNX4, right? Or were you still using the RP 250 or whatever the hell?
This was actually like an RP 50. Actually, it was this one right here. This is the Burn Season processor right here.
Oh boy.
See that right there, that little box right there?
Holy hell, Travis.
That's what Burn Season, that was the Burn Season.
Oh, wait a minute though. Didn't in Burn Season you also were working with Randall at the time, not the little baby amp, but the rat thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a later record. Okay. Yeah, Burn Season was that Digitech RP50 or RP50? RP100. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. RP50 is not, that's still a little too crappy. RP100, they actually had like a reasonable speaker simulator in it, you know, for recording. Not a good one, but the whole point of that, and I've mentioned before, just a quick side note, when people talk about recording, and I learned this from Steve Morris a long time ago, is just do stuff just to make it sound different so that you add more textures to records and things. And it doesn't have to be a proper amp, doesn't have to be a big, crazy, expensive, well-known amp. Just, you know, and so the point is, you know, the song that I did using the amp bag that I've talked about,
Right.
They Ernie Ball had this amp bag, which was a guitar bag with a little teeny practice amp stuck in it. And I did a whole heavy song that we'll talk about in a later podcast of a different record. The heavy, like a real, it was like I wanted a big wall of sound, Pete Townsend song, and I used that just to prove that you could, just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew those guys would love it, they'd be just like, "Really? That's what that is?" But studio is completely different than live. Studio is a whole different animal. You can do anything in the studio and create huge sounds with little wimpy speakers. And sometimes that's kind of the fun of it, is you start breaking up a little speaker, and it doesn't really, when you're recording, it doesn't sound that much different than a huge speaker breaking up, So, but anyway,
Okay, next.
So let's just look through the tunes for a bit here, and then I've got a bunch of other facts that we'll get into. But let's see.
I don't have that record in front of me. What are the tunes?
Well, we'll see.
Like almost, how long ago was that? 15 years ago?
Never
16 years ago?
Yeah, we'll see them right here. You guys see that?
No.
I do. I got my phone out. It's Neville.
Thanks, Al.
So I'm on
the first song on the record.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So let me just play the little clip of that. Let me know if you guys can't hear it.
Sounds like rhythm tracks. They just picked the one spot to do the one before the melody came in.
Well, that's the melody. You're talking about the overdub lead part, but yeah. So Goober says Chelsea the Conductor song.
Yeah.
Chelsea's favorite.
That still is in the set. I mean, all these years later, we still play Neville.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to what I was saying about Burn Season in general. Was I could still play most of that record and still be completely excited and proud to play that stuff. You know what I mean? Because that was the first record that we really got to a point where I felt like we were making something that we were, something that was closer to our capabilities as creative people versus our capabilities as what our equipment was and our budget and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's because of, technology getting less expensive and more functional, and having these little digital recorders that you could record 100 tracks on and all this stuff. So, so Neville is 11 spelled backwards, and that's because of the intro, right, Dale? Or is it because is it the arpeggio doodle doodle?
Yeah, the intro is 5 and then 6. No, yeah, it's the second part. The intro, I don't know what that is. It's just one big long number.
Right. It's the
37 and a half.
I would count, but I'll be out of time. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. And then Jen went with the 11, which apparently is like a it's a village
a small town in Belgium, right?
Yes, right.
Neville is a Belgium town,
but it's also
Belgian
11
waffle
spelled
town.
backwards.
Yeah.
Belgium, not Belgium. Anyways, yeah.
So that song to me was that was when we talk about how much the Steve Morris influence was through many periods of our career. That's a huge Steve Morris influence of the 6/8, the kind of chugging along, very like Steve Morris, Dave LaRue, got those hits. You're playing the. Yeah, that stuff. That's very Steve Morris band, and then that was also one of the first songs that. Part of the reason this record got better too is back in those days we were getting a lot of advice from Dave LaRue, and he would always say, like, "Are you guys sequencing?" And sequencing, for people who don't know, is when you actually take a keyboard or a synthesizer and program the music. Nowadays, it means all kinds of stuff. But back in those days, you would literally hook up, which I could grab, but it'll be a pain in the butt. I have the sequencer from the album too, which is just this gray.
That's a brother. It's a brother sequencer. That thing is old as Methuselah, that sequencer.
Maybe I should grab that.
I don't know how you ever got through using that. It was just a series of beeps. I would hear him going beep, 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 to program whatever sequence. And I was like, what are you doing over there?
I think of it as being like a drum machine with melodic notes. Was it just it's self-quantizing? Is that the deal?
No, I mean, it does have a quantizer. So you have to take blocks of it and push quantize and set it for specific amounts.
Yeah, it's like a drum machine, right? And if you're off, then it'll put it in the wrong place.
Yeah. So this is all the keyboard stuff that that doubles the guitars. If you listen to Neville, and people may not notice it because this is just all part of production that just adds to the sheen of the whole thing, but it still sounds like TLB as a trio. But what adds to the sheen of the whole thing is doubled with a piano, like including all the melodies, all the rhythm stuff. So I would program this thing, which has a floppy disk drive.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
This was before you had any way to get this information into your computer. There were no USB. USB did not exist back then. You know what I mean?
Right.
Do you remember which which sound module piano brain you were using? Did we have the Kurzweil by then?
I was using the Kurzweil, and I used some of the Kawai that you used to use live on stage with the Taurus pedals. So that was some of it, but most of it was I had a Kurzweil micro piano.
Micro piano, right? Yeah.
Which all it is, it's a little brain that you MIDI stuff to, which has it's called a micro piano because all it had was pianos essentially and some strings.
Yeah.
But then eventually I got the micro ensemble, which had everything, and that was like later records, That
was big time.
In fact, I can't remember if I can't remember. I might have gotten the micro ensemble in the middle of the production on Burn Season, because if you listen to the song Burn Season, which we haven't gotten there, but we keep touching on it, there's a trumpet and a saxophone.
There's the trumpet. That might have been the Akai, though.
I think that was the Kurzweil.
Okay.
Yeah, with a bunch of reverb on it, sunken down in the mix. But when you hear us jamming on that, but anyway, Neville, I've programmed that brother sequence.
See that brother machine again?
Yeah.
It's all dusty.
I'm racking up all these devices in a pile in front of me.
The PDC. Wow.
So yeah, and floppy disk drive.
Yeah.
You would plug. So there's MIDI cables. You would plug that into a keyboard or some kind of a sound module.
Yep. And then save it to the floppy, and then
you would put, like Jen was saying, you would literally do note for note. So she would hear hours of me going beep, 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 beep. And you would have to program note for note for note for note, every single note. Yeah, it was just crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah.
Why would they make it beep? Why would they make it beep?
I know, it was like,
so you knew.
Like, okay, there must have been a setting in there to turn the beeping off. I don't know.
So you knew that you got the note in there.
That's true. Yeah.
You didn't hear the note when you were doing this?
No.
Oh, it's just digital information. Okay.
You would be looking at it and you would say A.
Yep.
And you would just go A.
And would it play the beeps back? Would it play back the beeps rhythmically to you so you knew?
You would program it.
Beep, beep, beep,
okay.
Beep,
okay.
Beep, I think.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a timekeeper in there, like Jen's saying, a metronome where it would go like beep, boop, 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 beep, boop. So
and then
you could program it in manually, like I'm talking about, or you could set the metronome and you could play to it. But so I would play maybe like a bar of something, but I wasn't gonna like play. I was inventing this stuff on the fly. I was going, maybe it would be cool to create this little harmony here. So you're really writing with it.
Right.
You're not learning how to play all this stuff for the first time on piano in its entirety, and then saying it all sucks. So you're really writing the song as you go, based on the original demo, which would just be guitar, bass, and drums, and then you're starting to try and add production to it.
Yeah.
So instead of using obviously recording tracks, you use the sequencer, and then you could put as many keyboard tracks into the sequencer as you want, and then add them with the push of one button. Once you have all that stuff programmed, you could plug that sequencer into 3 different keyboards and have 3 different keyboards playing simultaneously,
Right.
and then record that on the 2 tracks.
Yep.
Right.
Left
and like a left and right stereo. And so
nobody try to retain this. You'll never use it.
Yeah.
Right.
So next, this is old. No one needs to know this.
Yeah.
Any kind of useful information.
Yeah.
It's historical information.
Yeah. What's so amazing now is that you literally can drag stuff around. You can even drag notes around on a screen in current modern day,
Yeah. Right.
Like you can look at the entire arrangement on a screen, and they're all little dots, and you can say this whole arrangement should be in a different key, and you can select it all and just go boop. Yeah.
That's all anybody we're talking to knows.
Right.
I was like, yeah, well, that's what I was envisioning. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So here's what I remember about this was this was still, like you said, you demoed Burn Season with a drum machine, I guess, but still some of it would just come at me with 8th note cowbell. It would just go tuk, 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 tuk. And to be fair to Trav, I think you might have offered me, would you like to hear sort of a rough drum machine?
You said I don't want to hear drums. Yes.
And I think I would say, well, I'd like to hear what all the options are. But honestly, when you're not guaranteed of a 4/4 beat, and there's without drums, there's so many options, and you're trying to figure out things from and the demo would be more or less compressed. So you don't have volumes loud and soft. So you're basically trying to interpret emphasis by pitch, So like when you were just talking about da 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 da, you're like, well, was it da dun, or was it da da da, right? So I remember learning this on a plane. I was going the first time I'd been to New York. I flew there to get a Pilates certificate or something, or gyrotonic. I was going to be a Pilates and gyrotonic instructor, and the only place to get the train. Anyway, I had a 5-hour flight, so I'm listening to this song in 11. And I'm like and I'm thinking around all this stuff. Like, I told Trav not to give me the drum part so I could have all these options. But then I was like, there's too many options. I can't grasp what's going on here. And I figured out that main 11 part. I knew what I wanted to do there, but it was I had a backup plan in case it was the opposite of that, But then I'm listening to it and I'm off time and there's not a drum to guide me. I know Trav's sitting there going, I offered. And then, and so now all of a sudden I'm not in time anymore. It took me a long time to realize it went from 11 to 12. And so I sat there and tried to morph that beat into 12, not quite thinking that 12 is a freaking blues beat. $11, is. That's weird. But then once you get to 12, I remember coming to you guys with a weird adaptation of the 11 beat, and you just being nice too, just like in your brain going, what part of rolling triplets do you not understand? I remember keeping playing with you, Jan. I'm like, no, I'm right. And you're like, pretty rough, man. I remember you saying it's pretty rough. And then you didn't mean I'm rough playing. You just meant it's rough to keep track of what you're thinking. And then I finally realized it was just do, got, do. And I think that was probably the time that cured me of going, no, I want all the options.
Yeah, just let me at least put the kick drum on the 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Travis is infamous for bending all the meter lines and all of this stuff.
Right.
So you don't know what he's thinking. And you could put your things in a whole other place and it's so nowhere what he was thinking. So yeah.
Yeah. I just remember that very starkly. But other than that, that was my main thing I came away with on that song.
I still love playing that song.
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
And then we weren't sure whether we should put the whole dueling thing on a record because it seemed like a live thing to do, but I think that was absolutely the call.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have anything at that point too. We were kind of starting to think of, write things that would be cool to see.
Yeah.
as well as production. You start thinking, well, this would be a really cool thing to do. Like it would be fun for Jen and I to have this whole section where we just like cut heads, right? So that started being something where we started thinking of the show in relation to the albums.
Yeah. Know? And I don't know that we had really approached it like that before.
Right.
Yep. So.
All right. So
okay. We got a lot of, time's running out here. What's next?
I know. All right, hang on.
So,
bird season is next, but we've already talked a whole bunch about that. So
yeah, we can just listen to it for a second.
Okay.
Because we haven't. This is the very Luke influenced bit, kind of Jeff Beck, Steve Lukather. This is total Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
It's funny to me how trumpety that whole guitar tone is.
Yeah.
When I hear it back, I haven't heard it in a long time. And to hear it like, back and forth, like there actually is some horn on there as well. But
yeah. I remember when we were mixing this record and Kip was like, no, you can't put a trumpet in there. And we were like, oh, yes, we can. And we did. And it sounds awesome. But no, of course, if you're blasting the trumpet to 11, then yes, it sounded stupid. But if you mix it in there just right, it's like, and then I remember he was like, oh yeah, that's kind of sexy. That's kind of sexy.
Yeah.
I got a text from Jerry, says, don't kid yourselves. I know what you're talking about. Believe it or not, I still have a Yamaha drum machine that I bought secondhand around 1984. So I don't know how old it really is, but programming that thing is very much like your Brother sequencer. I use it for a practice metronome. The Brother sequencer, by the way, is from around 1984 or 85. Like I had that long before we ever used it for serious stuff. When I was just playing keyboards as a kid, and my parents were, Christmas gifts and what do you want? And that was one of the things that I wanted. And it took years before it was actually useful because I didn't really, I had it long before it made any sense to really have it. Edges is a song that we haven't played in a long time.
I was going to say something about that last song.
Sorry.
On Burn Season, I remember one thing. It's funny. You hold yourself to a standard to learn a new thing. And during that, the sexy trumpet part you're talking about, or that Kip calls that. I remember instead of just doing that, how I would normally do it, I was like, I'm going to hold myself to playing these extra texture notes that are super soft. It's going to be super hard. I can't do it. It's going to take me too much to learn. But then once it's in one of our songs, I'll have this skill and it'll be part of me. And it's funny how sometimes that works. And sometimes you just are mad at yourself for doing something that you can't get back to. It's like, I can't always do that. But also the thing I learned too was I'm the only one who knows it. I went for this level of nuance that was 5 times harder than what it sounds like. And it doesn't sound like I'm doing that thing. I got so inside my head that I thought this will be awesome. And you can barely hear it. I got a little that way on this whole album where, like that whole section has a 10-inch snare and a set of 8-inch hi-hats completely separate, and an old rivety rides. Like there's 2 whole sets of sounds on this song. My drum set has never been bigger than when it was in the studio making this album. And it's never been on the road. Whatever people think of that rate of change live drum set, this had like Fred Flintstone curved bars going up to the sky like those tusks.
That's right. I remember that.
Hanging stuff like over my head and putting snare drums up here. And because I was going for all these cool sounds, and it wasn't that I was trying to dominate the sound with all these instruments. I was just trying to be uncompromising and get the exact right sound. And I just kind of learned, like, once you're going through somebody else's signal path, if it's not their vision, it all kind of just, it doesn't sound as different as I thought it was going to sound, you know? And I don't mean that to sound negative. I was just going crazy going, it's going to be so perfect. I'm not going to compromise at all. And then I'm like, those hi-hats sound exactly like my main hi-hats in that song. I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I don't need to take much time with that, but I hear that song and I go, it sounds like an organic groove drum set. It's like what's his name? Mike Mangini in Dream Theater. Stuff up, big row of stuff up here, and it didn't really make enough of a difference.
I mean, you know, we did still have limitations back then with the actual studio recording process, the microphones and whatever Kip had going on in his studio. We were still pretty limited, and I know you struggle a lot with the thing you heard in your head and what ended up on tape or.
Well, we haven't even gotten into the fact that we were literally learning how to use Pro Tools and setting that up for the first time ever.
Yeah, right. So I'll let us go further, but that was a kind of general thing in this album, but that song encapsulated. I'm happy with the way that song sounds, but I think of the work I put into it, it would be hilarious to watch.
Yeah. Okay. I can't believe it's like we're running out of time. We're on the third song right now.
We're just going to be here because we're not going to.
No, we'll just do a part 2.
No. Come on.
Yes, part 2.
Well, we've done 831.
Man, I haven't heard some of this stuff in so long.
Yeah, so that song, I still like that song, but we played it so much that we kind of put it to bed. And it's not a song that I feel like we don't want to play anymore based on its quality, but that's just one of those songs that we played the crap out of all that stuff for so long. Because again, Burn Season, first album where we were kind of like, it's kind of okay, we kind of have like a real produced album here, even with how it was done. I mean, it's not the greatest produced album even still, but compared to where we had been. But that song is, to me, totally like, there was a song that not hardly any, I don't even know if I should say it because maybe someday we'll, try and do something with it. But there's a Steve Morris song that he's never played live called, is it Golden Quest, Jen?
Yeah.
And that song, so Edges is very influenced by Golden Quest as far as this kind of ascending, like driving, just, a cool tune. And there's, that was just a sample of it, but there's a lot of kind of Eric Johnson-y clean guitar parts to that song where we were mixing up a lot of kind of glassy, tasty things and then having these big rock sections. But that song was really always fun to play live.
Yeah. And I think that's where the title came from too, was that we felt like we were combining these glassy bits with some of these more progressive, linked up, edgier bits, and somehow Edges. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's my recollection.
I liked hearing that today. I was digging it.
Did you actually check this stuff out beforehand today, Dale?
Yeah, about an hour before you said, "Hey, we're thinking of doing Bird Season." It's like, right, I'll throw that on the old Spotify.
I didn't even get the memo somehow, but
Jen made the decision though. That's the irony.
She didn't know you were listening.
Right.
Exactly.
No Fate, which we started playing again this last tour. This is I'll explain the melodic idea behind this, but we'll listen to this. It's kind of just a heavy rocker with a cool unison proggy thing in the middle where Jen and I get to sync up with Dale. And
oh, wow, right there.
Percolator.
So if anybody that doesn't know the reason that's called No Fate, I know Vicky up at Guitar Shop Radio in Portland is hip to this. But we thought the melody, so the regular melody in the song, see if I can even remember it right now. Wait, what is? I haven't played in a long time.
I don't know how to play this guitar.
Oh no!
Whoa!
There.
Sorry.
Oh.
Did you guys hear that I was just doing?
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, there it is. So this melody right here. Right. People are gonna go, can Travis play the guitar anymore? No. We thought that sounded a little like the Terminator soundtrack, which is ba-na-na-na-na-na, right? That there. So I can't do the super high thing right now, probably without breaking a string. But the overdub.
Can you guys
at the very...
hear this? Am I jacked in? Can you hear music?
Yes.
So that's what Trav's talking about. I'll try not to do it long enough to mess up our copyright stuff. Can you hear that?
Yeah, but go back a little bit, because I'm not even doing it there. I only do the very first couple of notes. I actually cop the Terminator thing, but it's right when the high part starts.
Here we go. Is that what you mean?
Let it go until the high part starts. And that's actually a couple notes of the Terminator theme right here.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Or wherever it is.
Yeah, next time around. Keep waiting.
Turn it up a little bit. That's it right there. That's the only time it does it in the whole song.
Now we're going to screw up our whole broadcast by having copyrighted stuff too long.
No, I mean, we're already playing. I'm playing stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's so we thought the melody was just kind of funny, and then the rhythm part's kind of, it's not really Terminator, but it's kind of like right.
Right.
So we just thought it was funny that the melody kind of sounded like Terminator, and it was a running joke. So at the end, in that super high kind of harmonics bit, I was like, I'll actually cop it just one time, like in the stratosphere where nobody will notice it. So now everybody knows.
Yes. That's still a really fun song to play too. I think that there's a little bit of technical funness with all the tapping and the unison parts, and it's fun to rock out to, a lot of times I've just been like da 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 da, and like really having fun with that part, and me and Dale look at each other, and I don't know, there's some fun moments playing that song live.
Well, sometimes it's fun to just be able to play songs that aren't impossible. Like we've been playing that song for 20, well, not 20 years, but 16 years.
Yeah, I still screw up that middle section very often, where it's like dun 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 dun. But you have to stay on top of that stuff.
To me, that song it ends. We were talking about how to do the outro, and I felt like I should do something to keep it from getting too monotonous at the end. And somehow I didn't have any good ideas. And Trav said, well, you could throw in some double bass or something. And so then right as it's fading out, it's double kick that at the time I was barely fast enough to play. And if I don't practice long enough, this becomes a looming thing just for an outro idea. It's not critical to the song at all, but I will sound like a jackass if it gets right to the end and I just go, cup.
Right.
So because of this song on an outro idea, I have to keep my feet in shape, even if there's no other double bass.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What's funny about that is to a metal guy, it's nothing.
I know,
right?
Totally.
Right?
It's 160 beats per minute, and
what's
fast guys will do 240 beats per minute. It's inhuman.
What's his name that plays with Devin? That guy.
I don't know. I'm thinking of a guy like Gene Hoglan or something.
That's who I'm talking about.
Oh, is that just playing? Oh,
yeah, Gene Hoglan. It's like they're just ridiculously fast feet to the point where it's just so crazy.
I play double bass beats like a rock guy, where I play it all powerfully and just lay into it. It's like they're just like
right.
So anyway,
all right. So
What's
This is
next?
Axe to Grind.
Oh no, wait, heads or tails?
Or heads or tails. I'm sorry, heads or tails. Thank you.
I have thought.
So that right there, by the way, the first, in my opinion, the first like really quality, tasty bass solo on one of our records, where Jen actually really like
a fretless sounding thing.
Yeah, like that's because we had the bongo with the piezo at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
she was really learning how to dig in and sound like a man, so to speak, for lack of a better term, right?
Why is that? Is that like a strength thing on the fretboard?
Totally.
Got it.
Like guys with big, fat, meaty fingers can get that kind of buzzy sound much easier than Jen really has. You know, she has to like really like dig in, like gnarly dig in for her because her fingers are so small. So that was like, to me, that's one of the, yes, we're complimenting you right now.
Oh no, yes, I just would like to add that it's true. These fingers, without that kind of meat, it's really hard to get that fretless kind of tone. It was shocking, really, that it's so complicated and difficult. And there's a lot of EQing involved. And Travis telling me, do it again, play it harder, dig in, you know, constant kind of coaching, I guess, as it were. So
Goober says, classic stuff for the TLB anniversary. You should play it all. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, Goober, that we did that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
we do heads or tails. I mean, that's one that we've talked about bringing back, but I don't think we have.
We didn't bring it. Actually, we didn't do it for the 20th anniversary tour. We did it. We have done it in like maybe eight years ago, something like that. We brought it back for a run.
I think that was another one of the ones we played so much that you
got a little tired of it.
It's hard to tell if the fans dig it enough. You know, if it's a hit, we want to do it, but we never really got a clear picture of how people felt about that tune. So we didn't know if people wanted to hear it. And for us, it was tiresome. So if something is tiresome, but people want to hear it, of course you're going to play it. So I don't know that we ever knew how people felt about that song.
I remember thinking people liked it, but it was one of these songs that instead of having a section where people go, woo, right afterward, it's constantly leading into another song where like, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this? Like a fretless solo or Trav all alone with no drums or with just solo. And then by the time it was done, but like, you're right, it's an intense song that you don't get a lot of feedback, but it's respectful. So you're like, did they love that or they don't care? I don't know.
Let me cover a few things here. Vicky says, which tune is this? We're talking about heads or tails. By the way, Vicky, we covered No Fate. If you're just joining us, we already talked about that. Everybody's saying he meant the 20th anniversary of Burn Season. So, okay, I get it.
So in 2024.
So 2024, yes, we'll go out and do Burn Season.
This whole album, I think.
Of all the songs, I will say heads or tails, it's just fast enough. It sounds like a flowing song. But this was right about the time we were still doing a lot of really small places and some electronic drums places and some borders here and there. And I was laying back and, you know, you get used to playing softer as a drummer, but on a big drum set, this one is one of those songs that just, if I was playing hard, it's no problem. And if I wasn't, it just hurt like hell. It just was such a painful song to play. The single most painful song I'd ever play. But it was such an enjoyable song to listen to. And I would literally try to like get lost in the sound of it. So I wasn't thinking of my wrists and arms and stuff. Like it's hard to explain why. It's not that fast and it's not,
Heads or Tails is the perfect song for when we were doing a bunch of Borders shows. Borders Books and Music for people that don't know. And I say that stylistically because...
Yeah, right. Okay, yes, right.
Because it was mellow enough not to scare the old lady running the place when you started it. because it would start with a doodle 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 doodle, and it was all clean and pretty. And then by the time you busted into the melodic section, it wasn't too heavy. It was just heavy enough to where people walking around that would dig a rock band would look at you and go, oh, this might be worth checking out. But you weren't offending the bookstore ladies yet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then at the end of the show, we would always end like you do, like at the very end, you do like, you know, No Fate or Neville or something, when it was like, okay, you can't fire us now. We've already gotten through the set.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I remember too, like there was a thing where this song was really dependent on a couple, just a couple places, but a background sample. Once when you're playing to a sample by yourself, once where I'm just coming in a verse, and same thing. It's like almost like a sports analogy. If your mechanics are consistent, you can play the same every time. But then if one day you're playing loud and then the next day you're playing real soft and restrained, it's not just that it's hard to do, it's your mechanics are different. And then I go to swat this sampler and I missed on this song more than any other song. I was constantly just heads or I can't believe that pun, but heads or tails, whether I hit the freaking right pad or if I just leave Trav hanging. Like he's waiting for the harmony guitar to come in and he's just like, no, okay, I guess I'll make something up over here.
Yeah, and the intro part, Dale's talking about it. I think I remember that. It's that part. I know the first three notes. Yeah, that's all I remember right now. Doodle 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 doodle. That part.
If we brought it back now, like people are either we draw well enough in small venues that we play louder or we play bigger places. It would be so much fun to play now. But like you guys were saying, we played it so much for so long and it was so painful. I'm just like,
it was painful for you.
A bad memory.
I remember that song made you angry. Yeah.
It did. It's like such a happy song.
I know. We had lots of band discussions about heads or tails.
Goober says he met us at the Borders, or I'm not sure if he's talking to someone else, but he says the Borders book show should have got recorded, and then he says that's where I met you at. James said, were we talking about Devin Townsend or Brendan Small? I was talking about Devin Townsend when I was talking about the Gene Hoglan thing. Devin Townsend and Gene Hoglan worked together a bunch in the early days. All right, so should we move on?
Uber at Palookaville. Wow. Gosh, that's a venue I haven't heard of. I mean,
Palookaville.
Sorry, my fault. My bad.
Remind me of where Palookaville is.
It's like Santa Cruz, I believe. Or, yeah, I think Santa Cruz.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that's where we saw. So after the Suspension record, Jen and I went to see Victor Wooten there.
Yep.
And it was like such a big deal. And he gave us a total shout out. Mm-hmm. Like we were sitting in the crowd and he's just like a Victor Wooten speech. He goes like, you know, if you like some of my music, you probably would like some of their music.
That's right. Yeah.
Just like telling everybody.
Palo Alto. Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah. I just kind of up there, you know, in the trees.
All right.
Yeah, that was cool. Vic.
All right, so axe to grind.
I'm taking a potty break while you do.
This is a killer bass solo.
So funny, you know, you hear that stuff. Oh, well, Jen's not here. There's one note in there that's a little late. And I remember we decided to keep it.
It'll just be between you and I. I remember this is in that same era where we played this song to death, and it's sort of a similar speed and vibe to not No Fate, Edges. And these songs sort of get lumped up in my head as kind of in the same vein.
Anthony asks, what Anthony says, was Axe to Grind named after the grinding guitar part? Absolutely. So people that, since we didn't, that wasn't in the little teeny bit we played. So Jen and I both do this scratchy thing every time, which that's a total lift from something that Steve Morse and David LaRue did in a song long time ago.
I'll say a super trivial part of this. I feel like I came of age on this song in a slight way, which is I would always really think out the click tracks that I would design when recording. I would like, if it was gonna switch from 8 to 16 feel, I would program a click that just made everything elegant in my head, and it just felt like everything worked together. In this song, there's a point in the verses where we sort of displace things by an eighth note. It'll go da 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 da, or da 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 da. So the one shifts off by an eighth note or so, and it stays there for a couple measures. And in the old days, I would have like shifted the click there so it made sense. And this was the first time I just went, I don't think I'm going to bother. And it was, and to this day, I always feel like that sort of was a grizzled move. Like even when we're playing it live, I'll hear the click go from this in my head to on the upbeats. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm never going to be able to keep track of that. And then I was like, no, it seems like I can pull that off. And then it was like a combination of, yay, me, I can do that. And apparently I'm grizzled, then I'm too lazy to make it right.
Let me just mention that Chelsea has joined us, and we were talking about you, Chelsea. I saw somebody mention that she missed Neville. So we're going through the Burn Season record. You can go back and watch it later. Yep. But we talked about Neville and we talked about you. So Chelsea, if Chelsea's in the house and we know the song well enough that night, we always play this song because it's one of Chelsea's favorites. And that's the stuff that we attach. Just so you guys know, a lot of times, people attach things to music and times and stuff. And there's a part of us that attaches you guys to that music.
Sure.
Chelsea is absolutely attached to Neville in a way.
As is Goober to Burn Season.
Yeah.
Penny Larson to The Drift. Well, that's the wrong album, but
it's like, I know there's like a lot of people out there, but there's the little moments that kind of stick with us, just like they stick with you guys about different songs or where you remember them from. And there is a bit of us that kind of associates songs with people that dig it. So, and of course, Vicky with No Fate, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I didn't get to say my 2 cents about Axe to Grind. Sorry, I really had to go to the bathroom.
By the way, up to that point, best bass solo on any of our records. Absolutely.
I like that bass solo.
Thank you. I'm not sure it's the best. Maybe.
Well, as far as like a rock and slap bass solo.
Yeah, I still have trouble pulling that one off live every time. But that song still is really fun to play, and it's one of those songs that we can do without any backing tracks, or we do actually, and it's kind of one of the first songs where I implemented the chordal kind of thing very significantly with the chorus, playing
to fill so much space.
Yeah, filling
without a bunch of rhythm guitars. Yeah.
And
that's that really melodic chorus, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually Jen missed it, but I could play a little bit of that if you want, just for a second.
Well, no, I know the tune.
Okay.
But and it's just such a fun, cool riff, the da-na-na-na, and I think I heard you talking about the LaRue thing, the dick 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 that thing, and
yeah.
That's just a really fun rocker. I've always loved playing that song, although it is a little hard just because you don't have that backing thing kind of filling up the sound. You got to really kind of nail it every time. So, anyways, it's still in the set,
As far as as far as the live thing goes, I attach it very much to like when we're coasting. It's at the end, the end is in sight. Because for a long time, like when we've done full shows in the last 10, 15 years, 10 years, that song has been like maybe second to last if we play it, or maybe third to last. And so like if we do one of those full nights in San Luis Obispo where we do like a 2.5, 3 hour show, like to warm up for a tour, and then we're really like just kicking one song after another and not much talking. We're like getting towards the end and we're really slamming. And then that's like always kind of a cue, like we're almost there. Like it's like it's so much fun for Jen and I in the front line to be playing that line together, and with everybody like smashed up to the stage, and I think specifically of like San Luis Obispo when I think of that. like that, where we're just like, now we're just slamming rock songs, and you're totally warmed up and the sound is good.
And when it is so late though in the night like that, it's a very technical, muscular song. I'm like exhausted by then, and it's hard to play sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, really? But then when we're doing it, it's fun. It's just like, yeah, you're in the home stretch. You're like, I can do this. I can do this. Please.
Glenn says he's jealous of these peeps that have songs associated with them. Well, Glenn, you have the whole East Coast associated
Yep.
with you. So
Yeah.
I think of Glenn in Raleigh. I think of Glenn in Pennsylvania. I think of
Cleveland, Florida,
Yep.
the Carolinas.
Seriously. Yeah.
New York, Long Island.
Mexican dinner before the Raleigh show.
Yeah. Glenn kind of just like encapsulates every East Coast tour.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see here.
People get ready.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about this, but let's hear a bit of it. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in because we just listened to it. Those chords you played on that, Jen, made that freaking whole section of the song, and it's going to get lost in the rest of the conversation because there's so much to say. When I remember when I first heard instead of bum 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 bum, it was like these. I can't vocalize chords, but I played the chords right there. They were so amazing, and the whole song added an element to it.
With that in mind, because I started doing those solo shows around a couple of years ago, and I started letting other people jam and stuff. And that, since it's a cover song, I would jam with some people on that, and not throwing anyone under the bus. It's like nobody gets up on stage with me if I don't love them, at least as a friend, but it's never, ever really good without Jen playing bass. It's a whole different song. Like, it's never the same. Like that whole bit right there is the whole crescendo of the whole thing. And if that's not there, and then just the feel, it's just not right. And a lot of people will say, I know that song because it's only a couple of notes. It's like 3 notes or something, but you can play 60 notes in a 3-note song. It's like, there's a whole lot of different ways to do things. And at that point, again, Jen growing so much as a musician, and having, some influence of what we could add based on even going back to learning a little bit from Victor and his feel, and doing Georgia, and then doing this as kind of that sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, what would Victor do on this? Those kind of things, just the mindset of, and that's all Jen. Jen went and worked all that out and brought that back. That's, we're very, very tied in on most of this stuff, like every single freaking note that either of us does or involved. And that was, go take this section and come up with something that's just going to make it really pop, that's tasty, that has chords to it, that's interesting. And she went and did that totally and brought it back to me. And it was like, that was one of those almost teary-eyed moments. It was so beautiful. I was like, this is so great. So
I agree.
And then
the truth, baby.
And then of course, I mean, the whole thing with this song is that this was Steve Lukather guest spotting on this song, and he, honestly, like it wasn't like he just played a solo. He played a crapload on this song. The whole idea was that we were trading the whole time. And so there would be rhythm, supporting the other guy and back and forth, and then doubling the choruses. So, he played the whole song from beginning to end, and, we've talked a little bit about those sessions before, but number one, scary as shit to walk into a studio in LA and say, we're going to go produce Steve Lukather today to play on our stuff, and if it, it's and steer him in directions we want him to go and stuff. And of course that's not a thing. Luke is the greatest guy ever, such a sweetheart, totally soulful, totally awesome, but that doesn't mean it's not scary as shit to say, okay, the guy that wrote most of the Thriller record and is on over 1,000 Billboard hits and plays, like for what, 45 years, 50 years, like, and we're gonna tell him what we want him to do. And that's also, I will say with that, specific, Jen and I, and, of course Dale's in here too, but Jen and I as producers are headstrong enough to say, yeah, you have to do it the way we want you to do it. Like if he wasn't doing it the way we wanted it to do it, we had to speak up because we had a vision of, we want Luke's feel and we want Luke to play on this, but we want him to do this.
Yeah. There's a lot of money to us.
When we just the idea that he's like gonna bring all he brings to the table, but still it's our vision.
I remember there was a moment, and stop me if this seems inappropriate to tell, I don't think it is, but so you're sitting there with Luke, he's tracking a few different takes and he's just winging it. He's going effects live to tape and to disc, and just a real quick follow up on your story. It was $900 a day to get the studio that he wanted to use because it's the Toto studio. That's so you're sitting there at the largest Neve board that they did Dark Side of the Moon on, and Steve Luca, they're sitting there, and there's a few things he's just sort of warming up, and a couple times Jen and I are you're sitting there at the board with him, and Jen and I are sitting a few feet away, and once or twice to go, no, and like it's so fun to hear him just wail. And one was super exciting, but he didn't follow through with it. And
he flubbed it.
And we were like, and then he did another one and he liked it. And Jen and I were sort of back there going, that's not it. Like, it sounds so silly, like you're saying.
Back at us. And
and Luke literally goes, I like that one. And we shake off Trav to tell Luke no. I'm sitting there going, Trav's got to tell him no. I could not do this in a million years. I'm telling Trav to do something that if you asked me to do, I'd say, forget it. No, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but the first thing he did was brilliant. And then he kind of like didn't quite finish. And then he did something else. And we were like, no, that first thing you were doing was brilliant. You have to do that.
But while I was telling you to tell him to keep trying, I was like, I would not be able to, but you should.
And there was a bit too where Luke, he doesn't, like, he can shred, but he doesn't necessarily, he's a soulful player, and he'll have a lot of fun shredding, but if he knows something's going on a record, he wants to play for the song, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to have the conversation too. Like at the end, I kept going, no, go harder, go further. Come on, you gotta, like just rip it up. And he's just like, that's just a bunch of bullshit. And I'm like, no, you totally rip it up. And he does at the very end. He just like does this crazy line. And I'm like, that's it. That's what we're looking for. And then he's just like, yeah, okay, all right,
Yeah.
But it was like, so much of what we were doing, like he didn't want to not be the tasty guy in his defense.
Right.
And we were like, yeah, but it's a guitar record. Just at the end, just go little nuts. You know what I mean? Because the rest of the stuff he did was just phenomenally beautiful, but and there's rhythm stuff too. That was a huge part of it. Like I wanted his rhythm stuff, I wanted his touch and all that underneath the guitar, my guitar solo and the intro, like all that stuff.
Is that him at the very end going?
That's actually me going. So I copped like a little bit of the Beck thing.
Okay.
But Luke's playing.
I don't know the very last thing where it's woo 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 woo.
Yeah, the feedback is Luke at the very end, where he's like, woo, woo, and it's like almost like in the wrong key in the coolest way possible.
Kind of not exactly right, but it's kind of exactly right too.
I remember not really quite absorbing that was awesome. Going, well, that was great, but we can trim that off. And Jen, I think you like literally looked around and went, if we cut that, I'm quitting the band.
Like,
that was like a real quote.
I don't care what anybody says. We're keeping that. Yeah.
Now I get it. At the time, I just wasn't. I don't know what was wrong with me. But anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to make us stay on that song solo.
All right.
I'm just going to throw out there, though, we have still like a half a record to go. Do we want to split this into 2-part sessions, or what are you guys thinking?
Well, let's see.
Because like this could easily go for another long time.
Well, there's, I think we should keep going because there's only 4 songs left.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Oh, okay.
The last time we did one of these record ones, we did 2 hours. We got another 25 minutes.
All right. Sorry.
You don't have any place to be. Come on. No. There's nothing going on tonight. Nothing going on in the world.
No, not at all. I have a joke, though.
Well, good.
What did the custodian say when he jumped out of the closet?
I don't know.
Supplies.
These are good.
Wow. That was something. All right, let's get back into this. So enough said.
Enough said.
Let's see. I haven't heard this in a million years.
Yeah.
There's a good song, right?
I love that song.
I haven't heard that song in so long.
I love that song.
Wow.
Like I don't even remember it being that tasty.
I always loved that song, but I had mixed feelings when we used to play it a lot because there was a point where Jen said, well, when you figure out what you're doing with your kick, I'm just going to match you rhythmically.
Right.
And then I did this thing where I thought, well, it'll be pretty repetitive, but it'll be a little different every time. It'll keep it from getting repetitive subliminally. But I just created this thing that takes, I mean, it might take 16 measures for it to finish this pattern. And I just put Jen and I in this place that I used to always feel guilty about playing it. Like it should be this, you can turn off your brain and play this song. And Jen and I are just thinking so hard. But when I'm divorced from those thoughts, we haven't played in a long time, I really liked it. But I used to literally feel bad. Like I'd overthought this song to the point where we couldn't have fun playing it because it's so hard and sounds so easy. But, and basically Jen and Trav used to put up with me a level of kind of my OCD. That's obvious. I mean, it was probably sort of borderline clinical, you know, like I've learned to manage it, but you'd put up with some crazy stuff with me coming up with parts that you can barely appreciate the difference in. But I was listening to today going, I like it.
Good.
It was cool.
Good.
So that's my thoughts about the song. I love the song.
I saw Werner. I'm just going to clarify for Werner because I can see how this could be misconstrued. No matter what your opinion is, I just know what he meant. He said, what's going on in the world as of January 20th, there will be 2 dogs in the White House. Werner actually means real dogs because Joe Biden is a dog guy.
Nice.
Just going to clarify that before the war starts. So here's the thing with Enough Said. It obviously turned into a full band song, but originally this was something that Jen and I used to do at the acoustic shows where I was doing something that was me kind of just touching on trying to be like a Michael Hedges type of composition. And so the intro to that is me doing kind of a Michael Hedges thing, but on electric. But, you know, it was this whole the tap thing, right? And then you could pick the E string. Turn down a little bit. It's that one. There it is. And I used to pick these harmonics. So that was totally like sneaking in some Michael Hedges influence into a band context because Michael Hedges was a solo guitar player. But Jen and I had the privilege of getting to see him before he died, and he was amazing. Like kind of a life-changing guy to see play live, whether you do what he does or not. just because he's such an amazing musician and person. So
So
that's, even though
like,
it doesn't sound like Michael Hedges as a song, it's kind of a Michael Hedges tribute. So I guess you kind of picture like, what if Jeff Beck and Michael Hedges collaborated or something? It might, be something along those lines with all the tasty electric stuff over the top of it. But it's really the hidden underneath the bones of that tune is this tapping guitar thing. So that's my 2 cents.
But Jen, I don't want to keep you from being able to say anything.
I think too, I still was channeling the Tony Levin aspect. This whole record had a lot of that groove Tony Levin kind of thing. And this song also has that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Peter Gabriel. That kind of
Gabriel-esque stuff. Yeah. Go ahead, Dale.
And I always thought you did a good job of that, where you would be out front making that sparse rhythm interesting while I was feeling like I've really stuck her into counting her ass off while she's trying to be charismatic. But I was going to say at the very end, this fades on a sort of marching thing that I forgot about on the snare drum. And this will foreshadow things that'll come up in future albums. We all think Kip is the best. We champion his praises. But the one area of mortal combat with Kip and I over the years has been snare bottom. And this is before. So just for, like, again, I'm not throwing Kip under a bus. I'm not an engineer. He's the best engineer. But my life is either trying to get Kip to use snare bottom or trying to get him to eliminate snare bottom. And this was before I could get him to use any snare bottom. So I heard that marching snare at the end and I was like, oh, right. And I'm not criticizing that sound either. I'm like, this is before I could get Kip to use snare bottom. And then later it's nothing but me complaining about too much snare bottom.
Too much snare bottom, right.
I don't want to influence how people hear anything. Like, we get it to sound right eventually, but like, it's just, this is our Braveheart blue paint squaring off thing.
There's always, a lot of compromise. You're talking about the 3 individuals in our band. And then, Kip mixing, he has a certain artistic input that he fights for a lot of times. And it's with the engineering aspect, how he places the mics, the sounds he's getting, and then how he mixes those sounds in. And there's a lot of fighting. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot
of stuff going on.
Yes.
There's a lot of rational discussions of how things should be done.
Grown-up discussions going on. And, there's been 20 years of that. And Dale and Kip have really, really battled in a lot of ways.
But at the end of the day, it's still a mom and pop operation. It was still fighting over who's mom and who's pop.
And I will say this in Kip's defense: Kip loves drummers, and drummers benefit from Kip will mix things drum friendly. So I'm totally not throwing him under the bus. But it's and I play an acoustic instrument. I play the one instrument in a rock band that's not even supposed to sound how it sounds in a room. You're not even, so the different people's vision is,
it's all so subjective, and everyone's fighting their battles and trying to get across what they are hearing. Meanwhile, there's the engineer, mix engineer, who's hearing things. It's always just a big soupy mess. And at the end of the day, you all agree on something. And this is a nice metaphor for the world right now. At one point, you all agree on a thing that you're like, okay, I can live with this. Cool.
It's all about snare bottom, you guys.
Jen and I have been finding common ground for 32 years. If we can do that, and not turn into Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, then people can figure their shit out. All right, let's move on. I was going to say Jerry just said,
and let me follow that up with saying, enough said.
Enough said. Jerry said, enough said is such a brilliant piece, one of my all-time favorites, has a feeling like a dream. And I'll stop there because he continued. but
that snare bottom really needed to be, no.
I saw James said he's got a bad case of snare bottom.
James.
Okay.
That's funny though.
Strawberry Spring.
Oh my God. Okay, this is going to go on for like 5 more hours.
Dale said he seems to have lost the internet. He'll figure it out.
Oh, well, this is the appropriate place in which to do so.
Perfect place to do so because it's a duet, right?
Right.
Okay, so Strawberry Spring. And by the way, Jen, this is us like creating archives of our history that don't exist. So just hang in there, Glenn says Morris influence for sure. That song is actually and we would still perform that as a duet when we do perform it. I think there's a version online that we did at a clinic at Hurtline Guitars.
Yeah.
If you go to our YouTube channel, that doesn't have all the stuff, but it was interesting because we kind of went crazy with that song in the studio.
Yeah.
This goes back to the MIDI thing where I know we got that Kurzweil micro ensemble because that had all kinds of like
Atari things.
Yeah, like what's the thing that you play like if you were Beethoven and those guys, you weren't playing a piano, but you play that like a harpsichord. Like there's a harpsichord on this song.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a harpsichord. There's like 2 acoustic guitars. I think there's an electric guitar, all kinds of crazy stuff. But this song, I think, goes back to you and I when we used to play at, like we used to do all these duo gigs opening for a friend of ours who was a singer-songwriter. And we were just a duo for like a while. Like we didn't have a drummer for a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And we were just a duo. And we were playing that as a duo piece at Oso Street Subs in San Luis Obispo, California.
Yep. Oso Street Subs. Yep.
And
Tortilla Flats.
Yeah, Tortilla Flats. Like when I think of that song, for some reason I think of Tortilla Flats, Oso Street Subs, the backstage pizza at Cal Poly University.
Yeah. All venues defunct.
Yeah. And then we started turning it into, like an actual thing. And then on this record, it doesn't, the root of it's there, but it actually sounds somewhat different production wise than the live version, right? I mean,
yeah.
But the tone of the bass on this song again sounds so much cooler than some of the previous records, meaning tonally, because you had the bongo.
Yeah. Right.
So we used a lot of that bongo piezo on a lot of either these kind of acousticy things or the like rock tunes,
Right. Yeah.
We all have to decide until I see Dale pop again. We have to decide whether. Oh, I think he's coming back.
I want to talk about too the title of this song, "Strawberry Spring," is a reference. Oh.
He's getting another device going.
Okay. Well, I was and am, although not as much. I don't know. Back then, I was a huge Stephen King fan, and one of his short stories called "Strawberry Spring" was about the murderer, Jack the Ripper. Yeah. A take on that, and Strawberry Spring was a story, and just this had this kind of not a murderer vibe, but like this. You don't know what to expect, sort of foggy, what the heck is going on kind of vibe to me. So I think Strawberry Spring, and it has a pleasant sound. So it seemed very juxtapositioned where the underlying thing was this dark, sinister, but Strawberry Spring sounds like all happy and stuff. And this song has that vibe to me where it seems a little dark in a way, but it also has this light kind of, Fruity Pebbles kind of thing.
Right. I'm just waiting until Dale pulls the big black strip off of the top of his screen. That's kind of what I'm like. I know we can see you and we can hear you, Dale, but I haven't put you in the show yet because you were all black. Now there he is. There was a big black strip at the top of your screen, so I was waiting until you got that fixed.
I'm on my phone and I probably sound like crap. I had stuck it in a holder where I had a claw in front of the camera. Sorry.
Do you happen to have a headset for your phone? If you plug that in, then you'll have better audio. I'm just putting that out there.
It's a great idea. It's not going to work out, but we'll see what happens.
I told you we should have ended this just a minute ago. Remember?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, but you can't just do partial. You got to just finish the show.
Hey, you do Burn Season Part 1, Part 2.
But we were like 2/3 through it, and then next time you'd be like at the end of the show, going, "What am I going to do with the rest of the time?"
You would have talked the whole way through, believe me.
All right.
So that was pretty good timing because you guys had a duet song to talk about, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to throw Barrage on right now, Dale, just for the moment.
Do it.
So that song is just an obvious, full-on Steve Morse Band double bass rocker. My playing in that song, we mentioned on the Eddie Van Halen episode how for a long time I didn't do any, like, I was so influenced by Van Halen back in the early days that I kind of like put that away for a while. And this was the first song where I felt like I was really starting to get kind of the Steve Morse alternate picking thing together, and actually be able to do it at a level that, you know, that is presentable. And then of course the whole crazy unison intro in the beginning, that's, you know, influenced by a whole bunch of, you know, like there's some Steve Morse band songs like that. You know, I found something out the other day, just a side note, that Hot for Teacher, there's a alternate version of that where Eddie played all the bass and doubled the intro. And it was kind of before they had, you know, before like Dave Lee Roth did Shy Boy, which would be another kind of influence on a song like this, all that stuff. So, yeah, this was basically just something to write there where Jen and I could totally show our chops. The band could rock out and we would have an encore for the night.
Right.
So, why are you laughing so hard, Jen?
Because Dale's going like this.
I'm trying to. I was just seeing if I had internet again. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Was the internet like up there?
I don't know why I would have been looking. Oh, well, I'm looking. Okay, yeah. I have my phone's a different spot than my computer, and I'm looking up to my computer to see if the internet has returned. This started happening on Tuesday, and I sort of chalked it up to the election, maybe. But we've had rock solid internet this entire time, and I had one interruption, and now it's happening again. Oh, well, it's cool.
It's fine. I just thought you were like, you know, there were spider webs and stuff.
Yeah. So now me looking at my computer looks like this. I'm looking down at my phone. So yeah. So, and we don't have to get into the profound technical things with this song.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Garage is so fun. I've been telling Travis we need to bring this one back, and you know, even just yeah, it's fun to play. It's just it's just a fun, cool, groovy, not groovy, you know, fun. It's a double bass song. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like the contrast of the clean kind of Eric Johnson-y clean guitar sections, you know, in and out of the crazy double rocker sections.
Yeah. Besides,
I remember that bass line. You remember when I had started playing that, and you were like, "What the hell?" I don't even know what it was, but it was just.
I always loved it. It was a 6-note pattern played in 4/4, and it just it never got boring. So it just stayed, but it was against.
And you're playing 4, yeah.
3 against 4, and it just never got old, and it just kept.
One of the most questions I've ever gotten throughout the years is people always, when they see how that's done, people always go to Jen, "How did you come up with that bass line?"
Yes,
and it was just trying to fit a bunch of notes into this really fast thing, right? I mean,
well, Jen used to always play that even before that song.
It was just like a warm-up thing.
Yeah, not even shuffle. I'd play a straight D, and you go, and I just would always go nuts about it. You're like, I don't know what you think is so great.
You'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm warming up right now for rehearsal."
Yeah.
It's just open hammer-ons like on E and the A string. So it's like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like it just would I would warm up for rehearsal and Dale would play 4/4 to it because that's how I don't know for whatever reason.
No, it's just I wasn't trying to do anything special, but I just couldn't figure out why it never got old. Did I just mess up my angle?
No, it's all right. It came back to. Here's the thing, Jen, about that. You could just play that part. And there's a difference between the way you play it, a subtle difference that people wouldn't hear if they sit down and try and play it. You swing it a little bit.
I do, right.
And if you don't swing it a little bit, it's not right and it doesn't work.
It's weird. I totally agree. I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
So you can sit there and you just go diddly 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 diddly, and that doesn't work. That's not how you play it. It's got to go diddly 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 diddly, and if you don't swing it, and it's tricky to swing it because of the way that the notes land.
Okay.
You know, but
for me, the other part of the warm-up thing was that I used this pad on my thumb to hit the certain notes, and so that causes a bit of the swing. Actually, it's not the tip, it's the pad, and so that. I know that sounds weird, but it makes it go like
there's
that.
a Kip joke in here somewhere that I'm not going near.
Yeah,
I
right.
know.
He's like, Jen, you saying you just the tip?
Well, no,
totally.
Good job not going near it.
Well, I did it for Kip because if Kip's not here.
I know.
But I'm serious. It has to do with the actual angle of. I wasn't purposely trying to swing anything, but because I wasn't plucking it straight on and it was more like this and catching the meat, it ended up being like this flowing thing, like as opposed to like that.
Yeah.
So in 10 seconds, we mixed this song on plugins and Pro Tools that were being demoed, that were not owned, that we wanted to change something about the mix. And they turned into a pumpkin at midnight on a certain date.
Yep.
Literally, it was like, you have access to these for a certain amount. We put all this time into mixing the song. And the Kip said, oh, yeah, these are, what do you call it? They're just temporary. And we're like, when do they go away? And it was like 11:59 on a Tuesday. So we were like, getting day off work to go try to make this happen.
I think I took a picture of the clock for that album, that photo album of like 5 to midnight. Like,
I have that picture, I think, and we'll do a quick run through the pictures before we sign off. But that is in there, that picture of the clock on Pro Tools,
right?
Basically ticking down while we're burning the mix.
Where the demo plugins are about to expire, so you have to burn out a final mix. Yeah,
right.
Because we couldn't afford plugins. Who can afford plugins?
Right.
Waves. Who can afford Waves back in 2014?
Okay, so moving on to Dirty Magic. Dirty Magic, I just saw Vinnie Moore just did a thing on the internet where he showed, he did a lesson on basically exactly what's going on in Dirty Magic, which is these open string hammer-ons. Right? And I thought that was I saw him do that and I was like, oh, interesting. It totally made me think of this song because he's doing this thing where it's like. So that's Dirty Magic is based around a big riff and these kind of hammer-on open string things. But here's what it sounds like.
I always loved that song. I don't know why we don't play it still.
Well,
I know he does hold up.
I think it's another one we were tired of. So my quick I have many memories of playing this song. One of my favorite memories is playing this in San Diego after Larry Mitchell was on. And there's a YouTube bootleg out there maybe somewhere, and the place was just completely packed, and we were rocking the crap out of this song. It was just like that was like kind of a magical moment. But my favorite story of this song is Jen and I playing this at the Ernie Ball stage at the NAMM show. Steve Morse standing in front of us with his wife. Yeah. And we go through the drum solo section where the drums just get further and further and further out there, where we're holding the riff together, and it purposefully by design starts to fall apart. So if you guys have heard the full song of Dirty Magic, there's a section where the song starts to kind of de-evolve into a mess on purpose, and then sucks back in. Too. Yeah, harmonically too. Yeah. And but Jen and I keeping time to what you're doing, Dale. Mm-hmm. And we're doing this at the NAMM show to backing tracks, which you just have an internal clock, because at that point your drums are just it's like non-distinguishable. Right. Yes. And he's watching us, and it comes back and sucks back in, and he literally jumps up and giggles and goes, "How did you do that?" That was like that's one of those memories with Dirty Magic where I remember us doing that, and Steve Morris going, "What was that? How did you do that?" And I'm just like, I don't even know what world I'm living in right now. Right. That was an awesome moment. So
I like that song because you guys do the heaviest riff of the tune in 5, and I just play in 4. And that's another one of those things where it's not super obvious, but it keeps it from getting old and repetitive.
Yeah, it's a super cool, groovy. I mean, yeah, that's a cool song. I mean, it might be a little immature in the way that it jumps to such significantly different parts. Even right there, it's like da 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 da, and then it's like da 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 da. I mean, yeah. It might be a tiny bit immature songwriting wise, but it's still it's kind of a cool, groovy, heavy thing that it was always really fun to play. I think that was one of the first tunes I had to detune for, whether it was the hip shot or an actual D. So I was always like, "Ooh, boy, it's dropped." That's always really fun.
Yeah, you actually live
from, I think Luke was the one who said something in those steakhouse sessions where he's like, "That's like Dirty Magic, right?" Or something like that. Isn't that where the title came from?
I didn't know that.
I don't remember. Sort of vaguely when you say it.
Yeah, I think Luke had sort of coined the term Dirty Magic, and this whole record was sort of evolved around working with Luke, and yeah, it was all tied together, and I think he kind of came up with that little.
I'm just speculating here based on knowing him, but it probably was something like one of us heard him play a lick and go, "Ooh, that was magic," and he goes, "Dirty Magic," or something like that.
Probably something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that song, and then there's of course the big like Rush guitar solo. That's just straight up, like we're just playing the Rush guitar solo, right? I mean, it's not the same solo, but the vibe of let's take something.
Right.
Where you're just doing like some weird bass and drum groove with like some string pads, and I'm going to just blow over it. That's total like early Rush.
Yeah.
Let's see. The last tune is the second guest spot on the record, which this song, and I've really been wanting to find the unmixed individual tracks for this. I kind of went looking for them a while back because at some point I'd like to release the duet version of this too on something.
Yeah.
But originally this was a duet guitar bass tune that Jen and I played at acoustic shows or as one of the duets in the band concerts, and it turned into this crazy thing after we got Vinx involved, where originally it was, we need a little bit of percussion for the album version of this duet song, so we'll get Vinx to play some percussion. And then he just went completely crazy with it and recorded like 12 tracks of vocals and like a bunch of percussion tracks and turned it into
lyrics.
Wrote lyrics, turned it into a completely different thing, like a whole, the only vocal song on any TLB record, right?
Yeah.
So this is originally called Seclusion, and then his lyric has with you in the lyric, and we combined the two and called it Seclusion with You. So we on the demo there, or that bit that we used, that's coming from the merch page on the website. We left out like the first half of the song, which is full on a song with vocals and lyrics, but then he doubled all the guitar parts with his voice too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Vinx, so anyone that doesn't know Vinx is the guy originally, you know, in a mass way where I saw him was back in the Sting Unplugged MTV special in the 90s. And he was Sting's right-hand man on that tour and singing harmony and playing percussion. And on that episode of Unplugged, the whole episode is those two guys kind of facing each other and playing and Vinx, you know, creating the harmonies for all the stuff. But he's also, Jen and I met him up in the Bay Area doing a show with this friend of ours, and Vinx was playing a solo performance with like a jam man looper, where he would lay down vocals, you know, kind of like what the masses would know Bobby McFerrin records as, you know, but Vinx would do this stuff live as one guy, where he would lay down like a beat and then his vocals and build a song and right in front of you with a looper real time live. So if he screws anything up, it's going to keep happening, you know, 500 times until the song's over. Yeah. And he was just such a good dude. And we went and had In-N-Out Burger with him after the show and hung out. And then that's how the whole thing started, where it was like, we need somebody to do some percussion on this song. We should get Vinx to do that because we're looking for a hand drummer. And then all of a sudden he sent us back this whole different animal. So that song, originally being a duet acoustic song, became this vocal song that a lot of people are like, why is this on a Travis Larson Band record? It sounds so different from anything we would ever do. There's like this kind of African percussion and, you know, all these weird, you know, harmonies and cool, like, but it's completely different, almost Peter Gabriel-esque. And so that's how that happened. So,
you know, there's only 2 times I've heard, you know, we always get the, wow, that's such a different change of pace for you guys. It's cool. And, but 2 times I can remember getting negative feedback from people going, that last song. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't like that. And then it would lead to them going, it's just weird for Travis to sing. And then they thought that you were singing and they couldn't. And then when I would explain who it was, it's this 6'5" Olympic athlete guy, they would go, oh, and then they didn't have a problem with it anymore. It was this cognitive dissonance between trying to imagine Trav be that vocal and like, he shouldn't, I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah. It's hilarious that anybody would think that I would sound anything like Vinx.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you know, this guy's voice is like, it's like Ving Rhames, you know? It's like,
yeah.
And both times they got back to me and went, oh, I totally get it. I thought it was Trav and it was just weird.
Yeah,
that's so funny, that perception of how it shifts based on what you actually know about a thing. Yes. And yeah, that's really interesting. I remember when we got those tracks back from Vinx, even Travis and I were like, whoa, like what happened here? But I remember it filled me with such joy, that song. I was just like, I was so blown away. I'm like, I don't care what anybody says. We're putting this on the record as it is. And we talked about it a lot though, you know, like how does this portray this and that? And how do we feel about it? And it's not really our thing and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, it's cool. Who cares? You know, I thought it was so cool. I think we all had these discussions, you know.
Yeah, nobody's playing this stuff on the radio, right? So who cares? Like,
and ultimately, it's like a democracy. It's not like I was like, no, we're putting this on the record. I don't care what you say. But everybody kind of ultimately agreed that it moved them in enough of a way that, let's not include it because it doesn't necessarily reek of TLB. It was just, I thought it was so cool. And I was so impressed with his work. And anyway, I'm glad we included it. I love that song. It's just such a weird, funky thing. So.
I remember when we were waiting for it, and I was starting to get nervous, and I called him, and I called him up, and Vince, he was a really cool guy to us, but you call him and you're still a little nervous. Like, I don't really know this guy well. And he answers the phone. He's like, "What up?" And I'm like, "Hey man, how you doing? What are you doing?" He's like, "In the kitchen making some food." And I was like, so what's what's happening with the track? He's like, "I've been working on it." And I didn't really know he was going to send us like 40 tracks on this song. So I was like, I'm thinking it's one track of hand drum.
Right.
All you got to do is pick up a bongo and send me one track. Yeah. And then he sends us this huge production. And we're like, oh my God. Like, this is amazing and different and sounds nothing like us. And that's why it's cool. And that was his whole thing too. And that's why he did it, because he was like, I would never play with a guy like you. I would never play with a band, like kind of this instrumental prog guitar band. I would never do that. So let's do this and see what happens. It'll be interesting. And that was his whole mindset too. So I'm going to go through a quick thing here, just kind of like starting to wrap up, but I wanted to touch base on Hugh Syme, who did all the Rush albums, doing the album artwork for Burn Season, which is another huge reason that this was such a big deal for us.
Oh yeah.
Like every aspect of this. It was the first album where we really had any kind of production with our recording technology. Steve Lukather plays on the record, Vince plays on the record, and Hugh Syme from our favorite band ever does the artwork for the record. So everybody knows, the album cover. I think, if you don't know the album cover for Burn Season, there's the album cover. Which is, there's, a lot more detail if you get real zoomed in. We have a huge blow up of that actually in the living room of the studio. But I always talk about the three crows in the inside of the record, which I'm not sure you'll be able to see them too well here, but there's a burned out forest here. And there's three crows. It's not going to work very well. Mm-hmm. But these three crows, if you go look at different stages, the Rush album, and also one of the more recent albums, which I can't remember which one, had the three crows. These are the same exact crows that are in the Rush album. Like, he used the same exact photograph, which I wasn't sure you could get away with that, but I was, of course we're like, holy crap, that's cool. Or I'll do this while Jen's, I assume she's off peeing. So to have like Hugh Syme do the artwork, and then when Jen and I were dealing with him, we got on the telephone with him, and we had like a long conversation, like a conference call with him. And he was such a gracious guy. He knew we were geeking out on the fact that he did the Rush albums, and he was literally telling us stories about those guys, talking about golfing with Alex and talking about how he would work that stuff out with Neil. And he's like, well, when I did this record, Neil and I were thinking this would be the way to represent the band and blah, blah, blah. And he was telling us all those stories. So Jen and I are just like, we're losing our minds on that. And he totally got that. Like, he was gracious, and he was doing that because he knew these guys are like psyched right now, So, and Jen got him to do that, people say, how do you get these people to do it? But again, the Luke thing came about where we were at the NAMM show, and Jen said, go ask Luke to play on our record right now. Just go ask him. Just go talk to him right now. He's right there. Now's your chance. And that's how that happened. And then with Hugh Syme, she just emailed the guy.
I did. I just emailed him. I think, what was probably an authentic kind of, email saying, hey, I have this band and we are huge fans. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of Hugh Syme and his artwork for the Rush albums, and his other artwork also just on his own. And And I just told him all that. I said, would you be interested in working with us? Here's the concept. Here's the title we're thinking about. And here's the music. I think we sent him a few little bits, and he got back. He's like, yeah, give me a call. And yes, I was just like, oh my God, I got to call you, Simon. You remember that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Talk about adrenaline overload. It was horrible and awful and wonderful all at the same time. And, you know, I had my notepad and I had all my questions and my notes. And yeah, we had to work together on this because not only is there conceptual ideas, but there's logistics too. Even back in those days, again, emailing large files, graphic files that you need have to be at least 300 DPI for printing. And you could not email that kind of stuff back then. You know, it was all, so yeah, he had to send me a disc. There was a lot of communication regarding, and if there were any changes, you know, it's not like you could, like nowadays, you Dropbox something to somebody and go, oh yeah, change this a little bit and send me the thing. It had to go back.
There's the time, by the way. I'm just going to riffle through these while you're talking, Jen. Just these production pictures, but that's the time you were talking about when we were waiting for the thing to come to an end.
For the plugins to.
Yeah. Go ahead and keep talking. I'm just going to kind of go through so people can see.
No, I guess I'm just getting at that was a different era when we were still dealing with smaller amounts of data. You couldn't hand off data so easily. It was still through the mail. It was still, I think we even were using zip drives back then. It might have been CDRs back then. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it had to have been. We're gonna kill each other right there. So
either that or you're coming at me.
Having to have many phone conversations with Hugh Syme about a record layout, and we did the photo shoot, and we had to send him that, and we discussed that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on where it was really intense. It was really cool, and we got the final layout, and he wasn't a guy where I said, hey, no, can you redo this? Everything was perfect. Everything was so spot on. And we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And he set it all up, sent it even off to the replicators and handled it all. And it was awesome.
Oh, and real quick.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Dan Burke.
So Dan Burke, if you listen to the end of the song Burn Season, so much stuff about the song Burn Season.
I almost brought that up.
Yeah, Dan Burke was a friend of ours who was also involved in music and playing music and producing music.
Setting up the Pro Tools rig for Kip in addition to us, yes.
Something you never hear, because unless you listen to the record, is the end of Burn Season, the reverse part where it sucks up into the end of it, goes and ends. That's Dan Burke reversing that and creating that. That was his contribution. Yep. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
I almost brought that up, but yeah.
He was really kind of training Kip on Pro Tools at this point, because we had gone in, Kip went out of town, and we figured it out for ourselves. But then Kip needed a certain amount of training for the mixing side of things. We were just tracking, and yeah, Dan was very integral to that whole process.
Yep.
I was
gonna go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead. These are the pictures that, by the way, my brother did the pictures that we sent to Hugh Syme, that Hugh Syme doctored and created the whole backgrounds for. But the original photos are these, where we went out into a deserted road and just shot a bunch of kind of like deserty looking pictures. So go ahead, Dale.
I was going to add one little tiny thing to the Hugh Syme thing. Was I remember, not to toot our horn, but I remember it being like such a honoring thing that on a group phone call, you had already dealt with him a lot, Jen, but when we got on a group call about the art, he said basically something along the lines of that he wouldn't be getting involved in the project if he didn't like what we were doing musically and stuff.
Yeah.
We're like,
yeah.
oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I know. It was such a cool, big deal. I mean, he's such a prolific artist. And hey.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There's the amp. Yeah, this is the feedback. This is literally me recording the feedback intro to Burn Season, or intro and bridge section, or whatever you want to call it in the middle. But getting it to go bow now.
Yep. The baby amp on the stool.
Yeah. And there's Luke. That's the, for anyone not knowing, that's the Neve console that was used in Dark Side of the Moon. If you watched the Pink Floyd when they're playing at the pyramids, that's the board. It was at the time the biggest Neve console in the world. And this was Luke and I trying out this whammy bar that this guy had built that had a whammy bar off the back and a whammy bar off the front. That I don't know if that's still I never went into production, so I'm not sure how much I should talk about it, but that was Luke's rig at the time. This is the Steakhouse Studios where all the Toto records have been done. And by the way, we were kind of having like in those pictures in this era where I had a beard, we were kind of like having like this Doors kind of vibe. Like I think when we went into this thinking it was going to be kind of like a Doorsy thing when we went out in the desert and took those pictures. But it didn't really turn out that way. Luke, by the way, spent the whole day, the day before this at the pool and got super sunburned. And then he was like, come on, man, we can't take pictures. I'm all sunburned. So Dale's kid at the time.
Since I don't endorse DW drums right now, that was the shot of I just gotten this DW set and the 12-inch tom sounded all weird and something went weird with the mount, and so we didn't want to stop. We had to get that song tracked because that was People Get Ready, and we needed the tracks for Luke to do. So I had to go pilfer a 12-inch tom off the Yamaha set I was teaching on at the time.
Right. So this is literally the microphone Jen's talking into right now, by the way.
Yep.
One of those microphones.
RE1000s, right?
So, and this is just a document of how late we would work.
Yeah. It's getting that way on the East Coast right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it's a little late.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it.
Look at how babyish Kip looks. Oh, there's another. That's AM always. Aw.
Oh, just a whittle guy.
He's just a whittle guy.
And that's it. That's the whole shebang. There's me and Jen
producing. I still do that.
So that's Burn Season, everybody. Thank you for hanging out.
Thanks, everybody, for listening in.
That is probably one of the longer productions because, like I say, it was the first one of this kind where we went big. We had guest artists. We had an out. We hired out for the artist, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we were going really, really big. But that is the story of Burn Season, at least as much as we can remember at the moment. And when we get back out there and play, we'll have to play some of those songs.
Yeah.
Like Jen has been harassing me to start working on playing Barrage again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm not trying to rush things here. I just feel like
I know. I think we've put enough time in. It's been 2 solid 2.5 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
We beat our record of the longest live stream.
Yes.
So thanks for everybody for hanging out. All the Support Travis Larson Band links are in the description of this feed. And Burn Season is available in physical form on the website merch page, which is also
and we still
listed.
have Burn Season t-shirts.
We still have some Burn Season t-shirts. You can find what sizes are available on the website.
We have the Outside the End t-shirts.
Yes, and we have, and if you look on the description, it says the artist shop. That's where the Outside the Inn webcast shirts are, as well as some new stickers and buttons and all that kind of stuff. And we're talking about, there's going to be some more performance stuff coming up sometime soon. I won't give all that away yet, but and I'm also going to be doing something for another entity that does live streams. That Larry Mitchell has been doing some live streams for as well. So I have to get my bluesy set together for that. So, but that's going to happen soon.
Probably lots of stuff off of Burn Season, right?
Probably lots of stuff off Burn Season. Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for hanging in there. We're going to end here, and I'm going to go pee like a racehorse.
I know. I'm sorry. I had to go twice. I'm sorry.
So they drums into a phone.